Hello, readers. This week we are talking about elements of fiction stories. Other elements of fiction stories we've touched on before are characters and setting. This week we're talking about conflict, resolution, and theme. I'm going to teach you this week by reading you different fairy tales, and then you are going to be writing your own fairy tales. The first fairy tale I'm going to start with today is Little Red Riding Hood. You've probably heard this story before. If not, I'm going to give you a quick run through of how it goes. Little Red Riding Hood is told by her mother on her way to her grandmother's house to not stop and talk to anybody she doesn't know. Little Red walks through the woods and she's stopped by a wolf. The wolf asks her where she's going and she says she's going to her grandmother's house. So he slinks off and he gets to her grandmother's house before she does. When he gets to grandmother's house, he kidnaps her, puts her in the closet, and then he gets into her bed. He puts her clothes on, makes a disguise. So when Little Red comes, she opens the door, and it looks kind of like her grandmother, but she starts to say things like, "What big teeth you have, grandmother. What sharp claws you have, grandmother." Eventually, she realizes that the wolf is not her grandmother, and she yells for help. She's rescued by a woodsman who hears her call, and then the story is resolved. So, in the story of Little Red Riding Hood, what's the conflict? A conflict is a problem that a character faces. I think that the conflict in Little Red Riding Hood was that Red talks to a wolf in the woods, and when he finds out she's going to Grandma's, he beats her there. That was the real problem. She stopped and talked to him, and then he goes and pretends to be her grandmother. That's a problem. A resolution is how the problem is resolved or fixed. Resolved is another word for fixed or repaired. So how is the problem fixed in this story? How does it resolve? The resolution of the story. Red sees through the wolf's disguise eventually and yells for help, and she is saved. That's how the problem gets solved. Now, there's another part of fiction stories, and that is called theme. A theme is a message to the reader from the author, and it's usually a lesson taught through the story. What was the theme of Little Red Riding Hood? What lesson is the author trying to teach? I said that the author can teach a lot of different lessons with this story. One thing that stood out to me was listen to your elders. Listen to the people who are older than you. If Little Red had listened to her mother and not talked to the wolf in the woods, the whole problem would have been avoided. It teaches us that people are not always who they seem, and that we probably shouldn't trust strangers right away. These are different themes. So listen to your elders. People are not always who they seem. Don't trust strangers. These are different lessons that are taught through the story. Remember, a theme is a message to the reader from the author. This week we're going to be looking at lots of different fairy tales. Fairy tales are fiction stories that usually have a strong theme and a conflict and a resolution. However, depending on where you are in the world, fairy tales are different. So the fairy tale that you're familiar with, the Little Red Riding Hood is probably one that was popularized by, I think, the Grimm brothers, and it's a very traditional fairy tale in this area. However, a lot of fairy tales are different depending on where you are in the world. Today I'm reading you Lan Po Po, which is a Red Riding Hood story from China. We're going to be looking for the conflict in this story. And we're going to see if it's different from the Red Riding Hood that we're familiar with. We're also going to look for the resolution in this story and the theme. I'm going to say that with fairy tales that are different in different parts of the world, usually the themes of these fairy tales are the same or similar. So let's see what we find. Excuse me. Lan Po Po. Once, long ago, there was a woman who lived alone in the country with her 3 children, Shang, Tao, and Paozi. On the day of their grandmother's birthday, the good mother set off to see her, leaving the 3 children at home. Before she left, she said, "Be good while I'm away, my heart-loving children. I will not return tonight. Remember to close the door tight at sunset and lock it well." But an old wolf lived nearby and saw the good mother leave. At dusk, disguised as an old woman, he came up to the house of the children and knocked on the door twice. Shang, who was the eldest, said through the latched door, "Who is it?" "My little Jules," said the wolf. "This is your grandmother, your Popo." "Popo," Shang said, "our mother has gone to visit you." The wolf acted surprised. "To visit me? I must not have met her along the way. She must have taken a different route." "Popo," Shang said, "how is it that you come so late?" The wolf answered, "The journey is long, my children, and the day is short." Shang listened through the door. "Popo," she said, "why is your voice so low?" "Your grandmother has caught a cold, good children, and it is dark and windy out here. Quickly open up and let your Popo come in," the cunning wolf said. Tail and Pouts could not wait. One unlatched the door and the other opened it. They shouted, "Popo, Popo, come in." At the moment he entered the door, the wolf blew out the candle. "Popo," Shang asked, "why did you blow out the candle? The room is now dark." The wolf did not answer. Teo and Pouts rushed to their Popo and wished to be hugged. The old wolf held Teo. "Good child, you are so plump." He embraced Pouts. "Good child, you have grown to be so sweet." Soon the old wolf pretended to be sleepy. He yawned. "All the chicks are in the coop," he said. "Popo is sleepy too." When he climbed into the big bed, Pouts climbed in at one end with the wolf, and Shang and Teo climbed in at the other. But when Shang stretched, she touched the wolf's tail. "Popo, Popo, your foot has a bush on it." "Popo has brought hemp strings to weave you a basket," the wolf said. Shang touched grandmother's sharp claws. "Popo, Popo, your hand has thorns on it." "Popo has brought an awl to make shoes for you," the wolf said. At once Shang lit the light and the wolf blew it out. But Shang had seen the wolf's hairy face. "Popo," she said, for she was not only the oldest, she was the most clever. "You must be hungry. Have you eaten ginkgo nuts?" "What is ginkgo?" the wolf asked. "Ginkgo is soft and tender, like the skin of a baby. One taste and you will live forever," Shang said. "And the nuts grow on top of the tree just outside the door." The wolf gave a sigh. "Oh dear, Popo is old. Her bones have become brittle. She can no longer climb trees." "Good, Popo. We can pick some for you," Shang said. The wolf was delighted. Shang jumped out of bed, and Teo and Poutsy came with her to the ginkgo tree. There, Shang told her sisters about the wolf, and all three climbed up the tall tree. The wolf waited and waited. Plump Teo did not come back. Sweet Poutsy did not come back. Shang did not come back, and no one brought any nuts from the ginkgo tree. At last the wolf shouted, "Where are you, children?" "Popo," Shang called out, "we are on top of the tree eating ginkgo nuts." "Good children," the wolf begged, "pluck some for me." "But Popo, ginkgo is magic, only when it is plucked directly from the tree. You must come and pluck it from the tree yourself." The wolf came outside and paced back and forth under the tree where he heard the three children eating the ginkgo nuts at the top. "Oh, Popo, these nuts are so tasty. The skin is so tender," Shang said. The wolf's mouth began to water for a taste. Finally, Shang, the eldest and the most clever child, said, "Popo, Popo, I have a plan. At the door there is a big basket. Behind it is a rope. Tie the rope to the basket, sit in the basket, and throw the other end up to me. I can pull you up." The wolf was overjoyed and fetched the basket. and the rope, then threw one end of the rope up to the top of the tree. Shang caught the rope and began to pull the basket up and up. Halfway, she let go of the rope, and the basket and the wolf fell to the ground. "I am so small and weak, Popo," Shang pretended. "I could not hold the rope alone." "This time I will help," Teo said. "Let us do it again." The wolf had only one thought in his mind, to taste a ginkgo nut. He climbed into the basket again. Now Shang and Tao pulled the rope on the basket together, higher and higher. Again they let go, and again the wolf tumbled down and bumped his head. The wolf was furious. He growled and cursed. "We could not hold the rope, Popo," Shang said, "but only one ginkgo nut and you will be well again." "I shall give a hand to my sisters this time," Paozi, the youngest, said. "This time we shall not fail." Now the children pulled the rope with all of their strength. As they pulled, they sang, "Hey-yo, hey-yo," and the basket rose straight up, higher than the first time, higher than the second time, higher and higher and higher, until it nearly reached the top of the tree. When the wolf reached out, he could almost touch the highest branch. But at that moment, Shang coughed, and they all let go of the rope, and the basket fell down and down and down. Not only did the wolf bump his head, but he broke his heart to pieces. "Popo?" Shang shouted, but there was no answer. "Popo!" Teo shouted, but there was no answer. "Popo!" Paozi shouted. There was still no answer. The children climbed to the branches just above the wolf and saw that he was truly dead. Then they climbed down, went into the house, closed the door, and locked the door with the latch, and fell peacefully asleep. On the next day, their mother returned with baskets of food from their real Popo, and the three sisters told her the story of the Popo who had come. That is the end. What was the conflict of this story? What was the problem that the characters faced? If you said that the wolf came to bother the three children alone, that's correct. That's the problem. This wolf comes. What's the resolution of the story? How did the problem get solved? If you said that the children climbed the tree and tricked the wolf, then you're right. How about the themes? What were the themes of this story? Were they different from the other Little Red Riding Hood that we know? What do we say the themes were from the other Little Red Riding Hood? We said, don't trust strangers, or people are not always who they seem. Does that theme fit this version? I think so. How about listen to your elders? Remember at the beginning of the story when their mother told them to lock the door and not let anyone in? Did they listen to their mother? They did not. So this story also has the theme of listen to your elders. So I think what we found is that this story, the conflict was a little bit different, but mostly the same. The children talked to a wolf, like they weren't supposed to, and the wolf pretended to be their grandmother. That was a good conflict. It's the same as the traditional story that we've heard before, the same as this different version that's new to us. The resolution was again kind of similar. They saw through the wolf's disguise, only this time the way they got the problem solved was a little bit different. Instead of having someone come help them, they solved the problem themselves by climbing up the tree and tricking the wolf. And the themes were the same. Today what I want you to do is I want you to pick a fairy tale, and I want you to decide what is the conflict, what's the problem of the story, what's the resolution, how the problem is resolved or fixed, and what's the theme, what's the lesson taught through the story. You are going to pick a fairy tale, and then I want you to decide what these three parts were of the fairy tale. In order to do that, you can take a piece of paper and fold it into three parts. I cut my paper in half like so. Let me show you. Because I wanted it to kind of look like a comic strip. So what I did was I took a whole piece and I folded it in half and then cut it on that crease. If you want to use a whole piece of paper, you can. If you want to cut it to look like mine, that's also okay. Or you can just draw it in a notebook. But I took my strip and I folded it into 3s. And then when I open it up, on one side there's conflict, on the other is resolution, and in the middle is the theme. After you read a story and you decide what these things are, I want you to draw a picture to show. So one of the themes from Limpopo was listen to your elders. So if I were to draw a picture to show this, I might draw an ear. I'm not good at drawing ears, so don't judge me. And I might draw someone talking. It might be a mom. Okay, listen to your elders. This is not a very good picture, but you get the idea. I want you to make kind of like a comic strip, only it's not telling a story necessarily. It's just looking at the parts. So what was the conflict of the story? The conflict was the wolf came and said, I'm your Popo, or grandmother. And I could draw the 3 children here. And then the resolution was, it happened in the tree. The children are up in the tree. The wolf was down below. They lowered a basket down. Do you see what I'm doing? I'm just drawing quick pictures to show the conflict or the problem, the resolution, how the problem got solved, and then the theme in the middle. You can do this on a piece of paper, notebook paper, or you can try to do it on just a flat piece of paper, or you can fold yours like mine so that when you open it up, it has these 3 parts. On the outside, you might write the story title. So this would be Limpopo or Little Red Riding Hood. Okay, do you feel prepared? You have everything you need. You are going to go read a story and break it down into these 3 parts. Good luck.